I'm the moderator of choice.
Okay.
You're on with us?
Yeah, I am supposed to speak with you gentlemen. Absolutely. I live here in the state of North Carolina.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Brooks. I'm a health coach here in North Carolina. I also understand that we live in a state run by dinosaurs.
Oh,
The reason I'm here on this panel is because I'm passionate about this, but really is if you live in this state and you want to work together on making sure we sort of have a voice, I'm all for it, and I want to get your info, and I want us to just at least organize in some way that we can at least make sure we have a seat at the table for whenever this moves forward legally, right? Because it's coming. And I want to make sure it comes in a way that benefits the people who need it and not just people who need to make money or want to make money, I guess.
We're going to stay on that for a little bit because I think we've got enough North Carolina people in here. How many from North Carolina? Shit.
Woo. Yeah.
Oh shit.
So
It's the whole group.
Yeah.
And so we're coming back to this because that's critically important. I'm not going to talk about decrim in some, Washington State. Who cares about Washington State? I mean, I do, but yeah, you don't. So I don't need to recap every damn decrim bill that's not passing everywhere. So we'll focus on stuff we can do.
Well, let's talk about decriminalization.
Yeah, let's go.
At some point, because there's some important developments and some things we can clarify about what decrim is, what legal is, and how it affects us moving forward with statute of limitations on felony prosecution.
This is one of the smartest people I've met here at this conference. And,
As there's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a fact. He knows some really smart people, and he's connected at a different level than I am, which I got to tell you, moving in different verticals is astonishing. I just met a woman from Detroit who has no idea of a major psychedelic big dynasty, the Kalindi thing in Detroit, had no knowledge of it. And I'm thinking, how could you not? You're like in Detroit. But it doesn't work that way. Everybody builds these verticals and you have no idea. And Amir, let us know what's up.
Hello y'all, my name is Amir Zen. I am the founder, CEO, and product formulator of a cryptocurrency-friendly health optimization company called Specker. My goal is to create a free, happy, and healthy world in our lifetimes for us to all benefit from it. And hopefully events like this can help us. And I've been heavily involved in decriminalization efforts, starting with cannabis. I'm originally from California and was working through those Prop 215 years during true decriminalization. And that's why it's very important to there's a massive distinction between legal and decriminalized. And in North Carolina, I implore y'all to keep the decriminalization mindset alive, because the governments and the corporations want to do everything to control and centralize these medicines as much as possible, and they've succeeded in California. When they removed Prop 215 by Prop 64, California's cannabis legalization bill, now the state has total control. They've ruined cannabis as a medicine. Now it's just a recreational drug, which is exactly what they want to do, because now you can't outcompete the pharmaceuticals. And now the next step that they've done, they've even brought CBD into the fold of their control. So actually now with psilocybins and ketamine and these things, ketamine, we already lost the battle. It's with the doctors. You have to go to their office, and that's how you get treated. They're trying to do the same thing with psilocybin, and I'm really hoping that that doesn't happen, because then the medical monopoly, essentially the healthcare monopoly, gets to corner that as well. So we really have to fight right now as activists to continue decriminalization and educate the politicians so that they understand that they can still make their money even if it's decriminalized, because the state of California was making plenty of money during Prop 215, but they just wanted more of that direct control. So talk to the politicians out here, because they just need to be educated, and they literally know nothing. It's a lot of just reefer madness type mindset, and then when you go deeper into psychedelics, it gets even worse. So if those people, and look, politicians, they're not dumb people. I mean, sorry, a lot of politicians don't. But they're open to learning, and they understand that if they don't go with the times, they're not going to get elected. So from an incentive model, they will listen if you just go there with the education. And I would say, as a Californian, that was the problem with the state, is that they didn't really understand that education factor. And I mean, it's California, they want to centralize and control everything. So hopefully North Carolina, not as bad. It's not.
I want you to pontificate about the differences, the subtleties, because it's a real interesting arena, yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of...
Sit down.
Yeah, right. So in terms of the difference between decriminalization and legalization, it's best to just kind of put it into very simple terms. Differentiate those two. Decriminalization, the prosecution of that crime has been deprioritized as a result of a voter initiative, usually at the local level. Those are the ones that tend to be the most successful. Now, granted, decriminalization movements have expanded into state territories as well, state politics, but they're starting to make some errors politically that are going to tank. And I'll get into that later if you don't want to hear it. But legalization would be a fully legalized, open, regulated market that is taxed, that is falls within the jurisdiction of some sort of regulatory body, ostensibly for safety. I oftentimes will voice this opinion to some groans. I'm a big fan of the FDA. I like the fact that there's not lead in the food that I eat usually.
Just a little bit.
Yes, I'm glad there's no amount of Russia that's in my hot dogs.
There actually is. If y'all didn't know that, the FDA actually has standards for animal shit, animal bugs, parts, distinct standards for how much can be in your foods.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
It's gross.
Yeah.
So if you're vegan, you're never actually vegan. So yeah.
Oh, that's me.
One of the things that I will say about the decriminalization movement, decriminalized nature in particular, is that it has operated principally at the municipal level as voter initiative movements. And the ethos of decriminalized nature is grow, gift, consume. Simple, grow, gift, consume. By pushing that initiative, you keep it out of the marketplace, okay? You keep it out of regulation. You keep it out of, you keep it out of the hands of organizations that can lay claim to an industry of sorts, okay? But you still maintain the ability to express your compost energy, to grow a plant, to consume a plant or fungus, and to share with somebody locally who's been educated to the risks and benefits of that. Where the decriminalizing, this is my opinion, pretty well informed one. The decriminalized nature movement is making some very large errors when it comes to the inclusion of language regarding provision of therapeutic services. Because that gets into delivery of medical services, that gets into territory that is governed by state licensure boards. Regulations. State licensure boards.
The government comes in.
And also the lawyers that my organization, the North Carolina Occupational Therapists and the American Occupational Therapy Association, have hired to protect patients. There's a distinction that really has to be made that decriminalization is an effort, a good effort, fantastic effort, to deprioritize where taxpayer money goes in order to put people in jail, right? We don't want to put people in jail for things that are not harming others. We don't want to create these policies that allow somebody to be their lives ruined as a result of something that is a no-fault act. Now, you mentioned that in terms of centralization being a key motivating factor of a lot of the players in the California market, that same thing is happening with psychedelics in terms of the national psychedelic medicine market. With cannabinoids, I may be wrong about this, I don't think I am. I don't think there are any cannabinoids that are listed in the U.S. Inventory of chemical weapons. I know for sure. Yeah, I know for sure there are many psychedelic drugs that are listed in the inventory of chemical weapons for the U.S. military. There's a reason why one of the world's premier psychedelic research institutions, that's in North Carolina, the Roth Lab at UNC Chapel Hill. One of my colleagues is getting his MD, PhD there. They're doing fantastic work. However, it is a DARPA-funded lab. It's Defense Department funded lab.
Insert conspiracy theories.
Don't do that. So when we talk about making psychedelic medicine available for everyone, I think it's good to sort of just breathe and just think about what you mean by the words that you say. Okay? Do you mean that you want to have an unregulated market where medical products and services are delivered by people who are most likely incompetent? Would you like that? I would assume not, right? Do you want to have an environment where nobody goes to jail for growing a plant or a fungus or sharing a religious experience with somebody? Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So the words matter here, big time. Now we're talking. I'm sorry.
Yeah, a little bit longer, and we'll move over to Mike.
Okay, sounds good. In terms of centralization, the federal government of the United States of America is pretty darn good at trying to centralize things, okay, and to have control over an industry through some sort of regulatory body. Again, like I said, FDA, I'm cool with it. However, with the increase in decriminalization and the reduction in powers of law enforcement to use taxpayer money to put people in jail for drug offenses, the DEA is getting nervous. They are getting nervous and they are lashing out. And so they are trying to find ways to consolidate wherever they can. So they do these things called emergency scheduling. They've tried to do it with crop. They've tried to do it with a number of different substances. Currently, there are two motions. One surrounds tryptamine psychedelics, 5 of them in particular, and then another one surrounds phenethylamine psychedelics. Talk to you later if you want to know what that means. So I have decided to present testimony against the DEA to prevent them from scheduling first these 5 tryptamine substances, among them DIPT, diisopropyltryptamine. It's a unique psychedelic drug that is has effects that modulate auditory experience, and brain imaging shows that it provides stimulation of certain pathways that other psychedelic drugs do not. So we're talking about a substance in medicine potentially that can teach us things about the brain that we never could have otherwise understood. If the DEA is successful and they schedule DIPT, simple science won't happen. Because now, all of a sudden, instead of having a lab and a clinical trial, that will cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to perform phase 1 studies. It will now cost you, if it's a DEA Schedule 1 substance, somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. Nothing leads to centralization faster than increasing the cost of research by order of magnitude.
It taxes people out of the industry.
Exactly.
That's what happened in the 80s, or 70s. You scheduled it, and everybody who was doing any research in the arena disappeared. Psychologists who knew it was a powerful tool, they left and said, we're not going to screw with this shit. And DEA was new, they made it in 73, so they don't know what these people are up to, so they abandoned it. And leave 40 years of zero research, or little. And then now we're trying to figure it out, and I waited all this time. The DEA needs to get out of the business of screwing with determining what is a religion, and whether that your religion classifies you with the ability to work with plant medicines that the earth gave us.
Maybe they just get out of the business altogether.
No. We need the DEA's job is to control and manage inventory of dangerous and not dangerous, but medical drugs. And that's their job. And you can tell how good of a job they did with our opioid crisis. Literally 3 times or 10 times the amount of needed material was manufactured because of diversion and loss in the system. The number was unbelievable. It's not like you'd have inventory loss of 20%. We gotta get the DEA out of our business. Reschedule the products. Do not schedule shit that you do not need to be scheduling, or schedule it appropriately at a reasonable level 3 or 2 or 4, and let it go through the program. And that's the big one. We can all work on that. The Ames case in Washington is the Ames Institute is trying to give right to life use of psilocybin, and right to life is granted in, I think, 13 states. And so we've got a case. Ames is fighting the DEA over a federal states' rights issue, which is good politics shit. Because the states say we are in charge of health for our citizens, not you.
Not you.
And so we allow the feds, the FDA and the other agencies, but that one will be a strong one. We can get these items descheduled or moved down. That's a huge thing. So I'm going to let Michael speak about decrim in North Carolina and get your actions.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to pass around just my notepad here, and if you live in the state and you're interested, just write down your name, first name is fine, an email address, and then probably after this NCGA session ends, and it'll end at the end of this month, I'm going to talk to some people, but I'll probably send out a Google form, right, and just get feedback, and we'll go from there, because we're North Carolina's a unique state. I won't diss Raleigh and the decisions they make too much, because I do work with some of those individuals up there, and I appreciate what they do, but we're ass backwards in a lot of ways, right? And I as someone who understands the cannabis industry and what's happened with it, we're commercializing cannabis, right? We're not really legalizing it. It's just commercialization. I want to make sure that doesn't happen here, at least as long as we can put it off. And that's, and then, I wanted to have access, right? Gift, right? Grow and gift.
I think one of the,
so I'm going to pass, I'm just going to hand this off.
Yeah,
we talked about decriminalization, how we need to have standards for what that even means using proper language. I like to specify that we should be regulating these compounds like corn and tomatoes. They still have regulations,
right,
but they're generally, the government just keeps their hands off for the most part. They're not like, okay, we need to know how much of this is in your corn, and we need to measure this much corn, you can't grow this much. And so all of these regulations that are coming into the psychedelic world are just coming from viewing these plants or different synthesized compounds just as these kind of taboo things. And my goal is just to normalize, well, why don't you regulate corn and tomatoes like that? Then we shouldn't be regulating a mushroom like that. And if just one compound comes out of a mushroom that can do something else, well, you can go grab compounds out of those other products too. You can get high fructose corn syrup from corn, that'll kill you, but nobody's regulating how much high fructose corn syrup you can pull out of the corn plant. So I think we should just generally be moving into a regulatory style that is already implemented all across the United States, and it just works. Because when you go to farms, for example, and you talk to guys who are doing hemp here and then like corn and tomatoes, you ask them, what are the regulations for this? They say, pretty much nothing. And then you go there and they say, yeah, there are a list of regulations. It's really hard to move, you know? So we could just move towards that.
Right? I mean, it was GPS tracking tomatoes.
Exactly, yeah, like track and trace. Imagine how weird that would sound if you said, we're gonna track and trace your corn growing, your tomato growing, you know? It just sounds absurd. So to me, the absurdity is still the same with these plants and fungus and these other compounds, especially when they're not toxic, as many of them are.
I'm going to talk for a quick second about Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
The model of decriminalization in the country is in Washington County, Michigan. So Ann Arbor, always they decriminalized weed in '76. They decriminalized it, de-emphasized it. So cops have not been screwing with cannabis.
That was before I was born, by the way.
And I remember, I thought, wow, it won't be too long before the DEA realizes they scheduled cannabis wrongly and probably psychedelics. And that'll all change because we know how important these materials are. And who can tell us what to eat and grow? And I'm naive, a 20-year-old. But anyway, in Ann Arbor, we've gotten the Golden Dome. Not only have we decrimmed in the town of Ann Arbor, which you can't do here in North Carolina, the state supersedes all local ordinances.
This is true.
But in Ann Arbor, we were able to do that, and it's got a recognition for doing shit like that, so nobody paid too much attention. The county prosecutor right after that said, hey, guess what? I'm newly elected, and I'm gonna stop the war on drugs here. We're not gonna let people driving from Ann Arbor to Ypsilanti, about 20 miles away, and get arrested on the way just outside of Detroit, on the way to Ypsilanti. So he decides to make a proclamation and he says, we're not going to arrest anybody for plant work. Grow, gather, give, share, extract it, manipulate it, make it into chocolate. I don't care. As long as you're not killing somebody, burning something, beating something, burning, as long as you're not making trouble, we're okay. And the third leg are the cops. The cops just for 50 years haven't given a shit about it. They know how to deal with people on psychedelics. The university town, 100,000 people, they don't go bonkers to knock kids on the head. They tell them move along. And people are high on drugs like that, they don't do anything bad. They just stare at the lamp and move along. And as long as you don't scare the shit out of them, they're happy. They'll meander along, and the cops know how to do that. So we've got I work with mushrooms. I've got material. We share it. We grow it for ourselves. There's a little donation or remuneration for energy and time spent, but we teach people how to responsibly consume psychedelics and how to deal with microdosing. It's perfect. I don't have regulation. Now what we're going to add to the mix, testing. I have a testing kit that I'm able to measure the potency of a mushroom. We don't have to guess that it's strong or weak or some variant in the species allowed it. We know. I make a microdose capsule and I've measured the material that I've used and I weigh it accordingly to make a 1 milligram capsule or a 2 milligram capsule of psilocybin. You don't need to know how much weight of mushroom is in there. You're consuming psilocybin. And you only want to know that you're 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or you're tripping your brains out at 25 or 30. And so that's the point. So if we test our material and we know it's safe, our collective people grow the material and share it among themselves, and we educate people, it doesn't get better than that. And I don't worry about the cops.
As you see, decriminalization breeds excellence because it allows the small people to actually move because our hands are tied otherwise. And we could see with the California model during Prop 215, the cannabis industry was in a renaissance. And as the testing was on point, everything was just getting figured out outside of the state central organization who knows nothing about cannabis science, and then it just immediately changed. So if we can keep that decriminalization model, we can have regulations. So the industry regulations of the cannabis industry that we see today were because of the decriminalized market. That's what founded it. That's what built it, so that when it was time to regulate, they're like, okay, yeah, we need to test for this, this, and this. Because yeah, we've been doing that during the Prop 215 days, or in the black market. I remember black market guys would have lab tests in California. That was normal because you, as the consumer, expected that from them, and they were honest about it. And if we look at Prop 64 now with recreational, they have lab tests, but now they know how to manipulate the lab tests, and they're always changing. And
yeah, lab shopping is a real thing.
Right, lab shopping, exactly.
It's a real thing in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say in terms of the decriminalized movement and what you're saying about the need to maintain the integrity of that movement, particularly at the local level, that is something that in social theory is considered a temporary autonomous zone. Okay? There's an author, Hakeem Bey, who has written some things about the ability for societies to change as a result of groups of people engaging in acts that are revolutionary or disruptive in some way. Yeah. And so that's considered a temporary autonomous zone, because the idea is that it will either go away because it doesn't work or it's destructive, or they will network, and they will then have strength, and they will then become a group that works together autonomously without being directed by one main centralized point of view. Okay. So the decriminalization movement was an offshoot of something that I may or may not have been a part of in the early 2000s. I was part of the online psychedelic community, dark web 1.0.
Silver Road.
Yeah.
Before that? That was before Silver Road, yeah. Nice, that's a real pioneer.
Yeah, so, and those, we built them based upon this idea from Hakeem Bey, the temporary autonomous zone.
So you're essentially creating each individual as a node. It's like a computer program in that sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we would just overwrite, the IP addresses, whoever, showed up to, for 20, every, half a second. We cover our tracks, but what happened? Okay, so this is a cannabis extract and cannabis convention, principally. Okay, there is something that's called BHO.
Butane hash oil.
Butane hash oil.
Carbon extraction.
Right.
It's
right.
gas. Yeah, you're using a gas station.
Yes. The members of my online forum came up with that technique in order to reclaim the solvent so that it wasn't an environmental disaster. Yeah. These are people who are now helping to figure out the global ibogaine supply chain. Right?
Yeah.
So, temporary autonomous zone. That's, not everyone can come up with a closed loop butane honey oil trick, but people can create these local movements to tell their law enforcement officers and prosecutors, so please stop using my tax money to oppress my fellow humans who are doing nothing wrong, and then to gather, build community, find other people in other locations who are doing the same thing, and then build strength and do it.
And these people are all on LinkedIn. You can go meet your city councilors, talk to them, ask them, take them out to lunch, the district attorneys. You can become friends with people, and the more local your community is, the easier that is to do. And in our society, we think, politicians are these high-up people that are so different from us, but they're exactly the same as us, and it's just nobody wants to talk to them or reach out to say, hey man, let me take you out to lunch or something. Nobody does that. But once you do that, you have open access to educating these politicians about where they need to be moving.
Yeah, and so Mecklenburg County is a good example. So the city of Charlotte is in Mecklenburg County, for those of you who don't know. The DA, the District Attorney of Mecklenburg County, Spencer Merriweather, has decided at his office is no longer going to spend taxpayer money to prosecute non-violent drug offenders. Right? So you will still get arrested by CMPD. You'll still get arrested by Mecklenburg Sheriff. But the moment you get brought to the prosecutor's office, they dismiss it. And so that was something we were able to do on this county specific. And that's really the approach you have to take. We're trying to get end enforcement, but unfortunately state law supersedes municipality law regarding law enforcement. So even though city council can tell the chief of police would not like to arrest people for cannabis or mushroom possession, the police can say, well, we're following state law, we're not gonna listen to what city council has to say. So that becomes the kind of aggregate of the situation, but we can definitely get prosecutors not to prosecute us. And it's gonna be real hard, right, for them to justify, especially if we're doing a health and wellness program, right? If we're saying it's for our spiritual needs. It really puts them in an awkward position. But it is something you can do locally, and that's what I hope to organize us for, is to go attack some of these, attack's the wrong word, to kind of focus energy on some of these municipalities that are more, I guess, liberal leaning in their processes, to kind of allow us to sort of do what we do without the repercussion of us going to possibly jail.
It's local.
It is local.
The
Everything's
collective I formed, Midwest Educational League, the Educational Collective, it's local. I'm gonna be sad to tell all the people here in business land, this is not national. Your product, you're gonna make something in mushroom land and go national. I'll be an old man and dead when that happens. So good dream, but everything we do is local. We literally, our little we could form a cooperative here. You can grow mushrooms, or I'll grow the mushroom. Maybe we'll both grow and trade off if you want to go on. You can't leave a mushroom grow for more than a day. They're like cows, you have to feed them every day. So maybe I'll go on vacation and take a look, watch, and we could make enough mushrooms for everybody in the group. And we'll have some education and bring other people in to teach them. And we'll test the material so we know what we've got and we can exchange. And how hard is that? And we're gonna give them a few dollars. I'm gonna get a few dollars for growing the mushrooms because I get to spend some time and energy on it. And we got a local community. So what I'm saying is the local prosecutor is under the pressure of you. They're elected. The sheriff is elected. They're assholes, but they're elected. And so if you work the politics of how that, because what does it got to? How did this go in Mecklenburg? What did the police say? The prosecutor's not going to prosecute. What did the police say?
They don't get along.
That happens in so many places.
No.
These are just independent.
Yeah, like our job is to think.
That's the problem, right? Is the cops are allowed to operate with this autonomy of guys in uniforms with guns can do.
Which is very un-American if you think about it, because this localized standard that we have is truly the American way. And if you're not following that, you're not following what the city is saying first, then you're not following the standards that the system was built under, which is local, bottom up, not top down. And we built America from the bottom up, and now it's very top down. So we're just trying to switch it back.
Yeah, I would just say, when you don't have a police force and a district attorney that are on the same page, just remember that asset forfeiture laws will not work in your favor. Police departments, they get a lot of revenue from seizing assets, selling them, or
They seize more assets than burglars actually take in crimes.
Who's the real thief?
Seriously, law enforcement takes more in civil asset forfeiture than burglars actually steal.
And the burden of proof gets bypassed because it doesn't even make it to the DA's.
Yeah.
Yep.
real sunny conversation.
So there was something I discovered, you might be interested in this too, it's called Parallel Society. Parallel Society. It was, the book was written in '76 by the president of Czechoslovakia at the time. And he's either passed, I think he's passed now. But this was written while they were under Soviet domination. And in Czechoslovakia, from what I understand, they were able to create essentially a parallel society that functioned without irritating the big overlords, and they created banking and lending and commerce and governance and judicial.
Have you heard of Liberland?
No.
Liberland is around that area. It's in between Croatia and Serbia. They just started it years ago.
It's still going.
But around like 10 years they've been doing it, but they just essentially went into the middle of nowhere in these woods that Croatia and Serbia weren't really claiming, and then they just did exactly that, and now they have their own constitution. The place is run by cryptocurrency. They're going to those national governments too, talking to them, and they go around the world saying, we are our own free state, and we're the only real free state in the world. And they're proving it. I mean, there aren't that many people there, but the model clearly works. And actually, I would love to add on to that, because in America, we have the legal route to do that. One of the projects I'm currently working on right now is land development project that turns into government incorporation. Now, as Americans, we all have the right to create our own city, to legally incorporate, to go to an area and legally incorporate, and you know who gets to write the laws and the Constitution? The people who started it. So you can create these actual autonomous zones, but it's 100% legal. The county can't get you, the state can't get you, and the feds can't get you, because we have the 10th Amendment in the United States, which is essentially nullification all the way down to that local level, which is why the cities supersede the law from the feds, or they're supposed to. I didn't know this about North Carolina, how they're But, you know, in theory, the city should have autonomy. And you could do that through writing the proper bills with the right language. And cities do this all the time. Land developers go to an area, they build 500 houses, people move in, they incorporate a city, but these people are not doing this from a philosophical standpoint of let's free the world and heal the world. They're doing it to maximize profits. So of course the laws that are there look like every other place, but there are plenty of places, like you're mentioning, the city just decriminalizes it. Now just imagine if from the very beginning of the constitution of that city, you're writing that constitution to do things like no victim, no crime, from the very basis of your city constitution, and then as a result, those higher up governments have to follow it as long as you're within the bounds of the constitution. Which, what we're doing, these drug talks are, it's within the bounds of the constitution. We're not hurting anybody, no victim, no crime, so there's no problem really.
Does anybody have any questions? We're having fun and keep going, and Louis is not showing up to stop us. Yeah,
yeah, we'll keep going until he comes.
What you got?
I'm in the, I have a Charlotte address, but my county is actually Cabarrus, not Mecklenburg.
Okay.
And so, yeah, how does that
I think
work?
it just works if, you know, God forbid, if you were to get, you know, detained, I think it really just depends on your geographic location, right? It's just because if they catch you in one county, but you live in another county, you're still gonna get prosecuted by the county that you were in, you're physically in. What we're hopeful though is that this sort of catches on, right? That other counties, especially as we're making it a budget issue, right? That we should be spending our taxpayer dollars on more pressing crimes, right? On the homicides and the gun violence and these things, and not utilize these funds for nonviolent, you know, small-time drug possession. And the reason, you know, they get so much blowback from the police departments in particular is our police get so much national funding from DOD money and different federal agencies, right? And so those arrests that they make count and the tally, right? And that's all they care about is the tally of arrests that they've made. So they made 400 cannabis arrests this year. Well, that qualifies them for a tank in the federal program or whatever, however it works out. And that's why they won't give it up, because they want to keep getting that funding. And that's really the trick. We have to figure out the budget and really go after budgeting is really the mechanism that kind of makes this flow.
You kind of show the governments that they can still make just as much money, if not more, by using this different incentive. Because as we know, in a decriminalized world, the governments can still make plenty of money. They just need to understand the shift in incentives. And obviously that's very hard when you have these types of monopolies with war machinery, you know?
Questions, thoughts, opinions?
Anarchy.
Well, it astonishes me how subservient we are to laws. My sister's insane about not breaking a law, on extrapolating out the potential for legal action, and I think we're just frozen by this shit.
Yeah.
Well, per capita, the United States has more people incarcerated than even Russia or China.
Yeah, it's a big business.
So when you think about that,
Huge
that is
business.
mind-blowing
Yeah.
to me.
And when you
And
can
so I
say
think that
that.
paranoia, there's a reason for that paranoia.
Good point. Good point.
There's actually
Because you are going to get
a
arrested.
fact-based paranoia.
They're incented to do it, like Michael was saying.
Honestly,
they're incented to arrest
the
people.
industrial prison complex is really just a rebranding of enslavement.
I was just
And
gonna
that's
say,
all it
yeah,
is, it's just a freaking
yeah,
rebrand of what this country was founded on.
Updated.
And that's the reality of it.
Drug war is just a new form of
It really
slavery,
is. It
essentially.
really is. And it's been, it was written with ill intent to begin with, but it has been manipulated like nothing else since then. And it's tragic. That
If you see what Henry Asslinger was saying, it was super racist.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what formed all of these drug laws. The premise of, I don't like these people because they're that color. And that's how we built our policy for the last 100 years. Something needs to change fast,
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Louis must have shown up in the form of a bald-headed old guy in the back. It was. Yeah, we'll cut it. The audio guy's got to go anyway, so we'll.
I'm staying there.
He's a 9 to 5.
No, I'm teasing you. It's 5 o'clock. We're just letting you
You
go.
guys want to talk, you guys keep talking.
Thanks, man. Because we're all gonna beat you up on the way out. Because we want to keep talking.
There's a long line for that.
Thanks everybody for coming to this thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be around for a while.